Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We are UX Research and Strategy, and we first off want to say thank you very much for those who gave to us during North Texas Giving Day. Our campaign ended on September 17th, just a week ago, just about a week ago. And just want to say a special thank you for all of your financial gifts to support our group. We are 501c3 and we rely on your financial support to keep us going. So just a huge thank you for that. Quickly, agenda, what are we going to do tonight? We are going to have Miss Carrie Craver. We're going to have some announcements. Then we're going to have Carrie talking to us. Then we'll have some Q&A with Carrie after her talk. And we're going to have some networking after that. So just want to point out, you may have seen this in the rolling slides at the beginning, but we have we're on several social media platforms. So we would love for you to follow us on all the usual suspects. We also sent out a survey after the talk. Your feedback is critical to us to improve our events. And so we rely on your feedback to make sure we're on the right track, we're meeting your needs, and we're doing the right thing. So please fill out the survey. It will come to you via email. And also in that survey, you have an opportunity to sign up for our Slack channel to continue the conversations with our UX community. We will be having some breakout rooms after Carrie's Q&A. Now I'm gonna say something. I know some people don't wanna hang out in a network. It's totally cool. Excuse me. Totally fine. We will give you plenty of heads up to bow out if that's your thing. But I know that in these times, it is difficult to network. So this is an opportunity for you to do so. So I encourage you to stay. We're gonna break out into rooms of like 4 or 5-ish people and get to know some people. We're gonna have some fun questions. So I would encourage you to stay till after Carrie's Q&A, then you'll completely know when we're going into breakout rooms if you feel like you're ready to go. So just a quick shout out to our next event, which is October 15th. Tickets are available on Eventbrite. It is how you learn is key to what you learn. And Megan Rennie from Capital One is going to walk us through how to choose the best research methods. So this is going to be an awesome talk. Definitely encourage you to see that. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Carrie, and she's going to present her talk, which first I'm going to give her a little introduction. Carrie is a UX expert and business strategist who creates digital products that people enjoy using. Carrie has spent 20 years designing products, and that has included time at corporations such as Fossil and Laureate Education, but most of her career has been with startups working side by side with CEOs, as well as helping them build her own products. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton to Carrie. So let's give her a warm welcome. Carrie, take it away.
Fantastic. All right. So let's see. Everybody can see my screen now, correct? All right. Well, first of all, I am so excited to be here, and I want to thank Jen, Lori, and Lauren for everything that they've done so far, getting me prepped and letting me be here tonight. So I'm really excited to talk to you about first meetings with stakeholders. This is something that I have done many, many times, and I am excited to share some of the things I have learned in my kind of trial by error over the years. All right. So first, just a little bit more about me. I organize a couple of local groups. Co-Founders League is one where we try and match up people who are looking to find early stage business partners, as well as I moderate the North Dallas Open Coffee Club. It is a weekly group where tech professionals come together and just discuss technology and entrepreneurship. I've been part of that for 6 years, and it has been immensely valuable to my career. My company that I do design services under is UX Design Cravings. And in the last year, I've transitioned to building out my designs and not just doing designs, but being able to execute through no-code tools like Webflow, AppGyver, things like that. And then next month, I'm launching a product called Goals in Common. So hopefully you will get to see that as well. All right, so let's get into this. The first thing I want to talk about is idea types. When you head into a stakeholder meeting, there's one of three idea types that you're likely to see. The first one is new products. This is the whole thing's new, the company's new, the product's new. These can be really messy as far as knowing what the outcome is supposed to be. So that's typically pretty unclear in this situation, and these are the ones where there's a lot more kind of chaos and flexibility. I thrive in this environment. Not everybody enjoys it so much. The second idea type is fixing an internal issue. These are really common. So the product or the company already exists, and now you need to fix something. You're getting way too many calls for new customers, and you're having way too much attrition in the first month. So if it's a B2B SaaS product and people are dropping off in the first month and not renewing in the second month, you're going to want to fix that. So this would be a time to address that with the team and try and figure out exactly what to do. So the good thing about this is what success looks like is very clear and easy to define, because there's usually some metric or specific situation that brought up the issue in the first place. There's usually a team or two that can tell you exactly what to pay attention to so that you know that it's fixed. Now, that doesn't mean that the path to fixing it is clear and straightforward, but it definitely means you're much more likely to know when you've succeeded versus new product ideas where knowing when you've gotten to the product is much more complex. All right, the third type is a growth idea. This is something, yeah, yes, Jen.
You break it up a little bit. You said the third, start from there, sorry.
Okay, thank you. So the third idea type is a growth idea. And this is where you have your product and you're moving along, and now you want to capture a new audience, or you want to add a number of new features. So this adds a little bit more complexity. The main thing that's delicate here is don't upset your current customer base. You don't want to lose your current customers to get new customers unless you've made some very calculated decision. So you want to make sure you don't somehow cannibalize your current revenue, and you don't want to upset your current customers. It's just an extra thing to be concerned with when you're updating and going after new markets. So the idea type is going to fall into one of these three categories, and they just have different things you need to focus on. So those are the idea types. All right. So who are these stakeholders? First and foremost, the people in the room with you are the stakeholders, the people who are presenting their product idea for you to work on. Now, if you're in a large corporation, this is likely to be 5, 10 people on a couple of different teams, maybe coming to you and saying, we have this new product that the company's creating, or we have this addition to this product that the company needs to work on, or we have something internally to fix. And there may be a team of people. So they are the primary stakeholders that you need to care about first and foremost, because they're going to be directing your work, they're going to be approving your work, they're going to be telling you what you can and can't do to some extent. Hopefully it's a fluid conversation and you're all participants in it, but they're going to be the ones who have the most control. In my situation, if I'm there with just a startup CEO, they're going to have final approval of things and influence the direction pretty strongly. But there are also what I would call informal stakeholders. Sometimes not everybody can be included in the room for the simple fact that you want to limit the duration of the meeting and you want to kind of focus where the work happens. So some teams that are important may get left out. I personally, when I was at corporations, would do everything I could to go talk to people on those teams and have informal conversations with them. Just ask them what they thought. The junior team members are often pretty likely to give you insight into nuances and details, whereas senior team members are going to have insights on bigger picture things, maybe KPIs there or key performance indicators that are being measured that teams care about, or just general big picture information. So you want to talk, you want to be comfortable talking with junior and senior team members in formal and informal conversations, because your stakeholders are going to be all of those things. The last stakeholder, and it's a little bit less important for this meeting, but obviously the users are always a stakeholder because they're the one we talk about all the time and as user experience designers. So I'm going to assume that you know that. Now, these stakeholders aren't always going to agree on all the details, and you won't always agree with stakeholders as well. But hopefully, for the project to go well, there's enough agreement that the big picture consensus can be reached. All right, so now that we've talked about the idea and the stakeholders, let's talk a little bit about prepping for the meeting. So this one can vary pretty wildly. If this is the biggest client you're trying to get and you know it could be the next 2 years of your work life, you're going to do more research than if this is you in a big corporation, you're assigned this next project and you know the people you're working with and the project that's coming down the line already. The one thing that I would say is always important, and I did this even when I was in large corporations, is at least look the person up on LinkedIn if they're going to be in the meeting. You never know what you might share as far as previous business history, or even sometimes they'll have a link to a personal site from their LinkedIn and you can check that out and find out things that are interesting. I highly recommend at least researching the people and then depending on the influence and impact of the project in your life, more research on the company, the industry, the product type, those types of things. All right. So now this next one, this is something that has always been important to me for these meetings. When you enter these meetings, it is a cognitive marathon. You spend a lot of time thinking hard and be critically analyzing things. And it's good to be prepared and in a mindset where you're relaxed and focused going into these so that you can do your best. Most of the time I'm meeting someone at a co-working space for these meetings, so I like to give myself time to arrive early and decompress, especially if there was traffic and things like that. Now, this may be harder for you to do if you're in a big corporation and you can't just be like, hey boss, I'm gonna go take half hour and relax before the meeting because I'm gonna have to think hard. That may not be an option, but if you can give yourself 2 to 5 minutes, is it freezing again? Okay, yeah, so if you can give yourself a few minutes, and then I like to just visualize the meeting going well, me asking the right questions and things working out. I've done that since I was an athlete as a kid, and I don't know, can't hurt. So now we're getting to the nitty-gritty. What are you going to be thinking about during this meeting? These are the 3 core questions. Everything else I'm going to ask about the product idea boils down to one of these 3 questions. So the first one is about the benefit. Will enough people benefit enough from this product to use it? Plain and simply, are we creating something that's going to be for people or that no one's going to be interested in? The second one is all about the business. Is it going to be positive for the business? Is it going to reduce cost? Is it going to bring in money? Pretty much one of those two things. And then the third one, is it doable given the constraints? What's possible? Now, knowing whether these are yeses or nos after somebody describes a product is challenging. There are a lot of variables that go into whether or not these things are possible. But if you feel like you have strong no's to all three of these, that is a red flag. I have definitely had ones where one or two of these is a pretty strong no, and that's a concern. You want to have at least a weak yes to all of these for the project to seem like it's going to go forward. You don't always get a choice on what you work on though, so do your best. All right, so this slide lets you know that these questions, those aren't the only versions of those questions. These questions, you can basically come up with a list of probably, I imagine 25 to 50 under each category if you spent some time. So we're going to come back to this list. Don't worry that you haven't had a chance to read all of these, but just know that there are lots more detailed ways to ask about these questions. So I'm going to come back to these in just a minute, and we'll go over a couple of other important things about this list. All right. So now you're in the meeting. One of the things that I have discovered over the years is that it's important to let the stakeholders go first and be an attentive listener. Now, for me, this is personally challenging because I always have questions and I want to start asking them, but I find that it's best for me to sit and listen first, because what you learn, what this does for you is they are going to tell you what matters to them by what they say and what they don't say. And if you're immediately asking a bunch of questions, you miss that because you guide their focus instead of just letting them talk. People will probably cover they'll definitely cover their solution. Sometimes they cover their problem that they're focused on, and you often get a lot of insight into their personality. Now, in a larger corporation, you may already know them and their personality, and that's not as important. But one of the things that is really important when you're on a team of 4 or 5 who's in that meeting is if you're not the primary person who is leading the question asking, I would suggest one of the best things you can do in that role is to take good notes. And your notes should not just include the idea, the solution, the problem, but the tone, the priority. If they are mentioning that something is much more important to them personally or to their team or to the business, make sure you have the perspective of how important things are in the notes as well. And sometimes these aren't necessarily things that they say verbatim, but that they're just the quantity of time and emphasis that they give to something can let you know matters to them as well. So I would suggest taking excellent notes so that you can follow up with your team afterward with this perspective if you aren't leading the questions, because it's challenging to be the person leading the question asking and taking good notes, but both of those things can really set the team up for success in a way. All right. So now you've heard this solution. I will start asking my questions. I'm good. All right. I like to start the question asking on a positive note. And these next 3 questions are ones that I suggest you start with after you've heard the idea, just to get a positive tone going with the conversation and the question asking. All right. So the first one is, what inspired this idea? I did not say, what is the problem that you are solving? Those are very different. What inspired this idea lets them talk about themselves, their personal inspiration, maybe their personal journey to get to this part of the business. It's a great connector. It helps you just start the conversation off well and learn some interesting things. And you never know what you might learn here. I have occasionally learned some people who they really connected with, and that's their core audience that they're trying to build for. And that's helped me later on. So this one, I try to throw out there as often as I can as a first question. This next one, who are you a hero to? This is all about getting them to focus on who they're building for. So the key things you want to listen to here is hopefully they can clearly identify the group that they want to build for. Hopefully they have a positive tone in talking about them. And you know, one of the red flags that I get here every now and then is that people will kind of be dismissive or think of this group as not smart, and so they're building this product for somebody that they don't see as building this to elevate them, but they see as building this to help them because they're not great. That's a shame. That's a red flag to me. If I have a choice to work with somebody or not, and they do that, to me, that's one of the biggest red flags, because building products for people, we should want to be a hero to them. I mean, who doesn't want to be a hero to people? I mean, I know in our own small way. But that's what I can kind of see design as. And occasionally I've had clients who then adopt that language and they say, oh, we get to be a hero here later on, which that's fantastic. You get that, you know, you've got a really good client or really good experience. Yeah, so let's see. Red flags, if they don't know who they're the hero to, or if they feel like they're a hero to everyone, those are things to hopefully ask some more questions about and try and get them to focus later on. All right. The last of the 3 positive questions is, what makes you uniquely qualified? Now, this one can be really great for a team that has quite a bit of experience. You never know what you might learn. I have learned about sports backgrounds, music backgrounds. There's a woman locally who is building a product for rural music, elite music students in rural areas to learn from elite musicians. And she grew up in this environment and studied music through CDs, having her instructor send her CDs, and she would send ones of her playing. And so she has deep understanding of this experience. And obviously nowadays it would be through Zoom or something like that, but she knows exactly what that's like and how it made a difference in her life. That makes her uniquely qualified to be building the product that she's working on that does exactly that. But you never know what other degrees or background somebody might have. This gives them a chance to tout that and let you know where you can connect to them on that. All right, the one caution I have for this one is if somebody is really young, inexperienced, and seems over their head to start out with, maybe hold off on this one, because you don't want to set somebody up to say, well, I'm not really uniquely qualified or qualified much at all, because that's not what you're trying to do here. So I pretty much saved this one for people who I know have done quite a bit. All right, so now it's time to actually get into this real question asking. So you've heard their idea, and you get to, you've heard their idea and you've heard them talk about themselves and their team a little bit. So now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty and start asking questions about their product. So you're going to draw from this list. And one of the things that I would suggest that you do, especially if you're newer to this and don't feel confident thinking on your feet really quickly for exactly what questions to ask, is come up with your own list of these questions, you know, add at least 10 to each category, maybe 15 or 20, and then bring that piece of paper to the meeting, and you can simply put it that you feel like are really, say something. Is it ready? Okay, as you hear them say something that makes you think of one of these questions, this way you'll just kind of be familiar with more of the types of questions that you want to ask. And then that way you can very quickly put a dot next to the one you want to make sure you remember to ask when they're done telling their whole story. All right, and then the last part that's important before these the question asking is your phrasing. Again, we're in the world of UX, we are hypercritical, and that's what makes us great at our jobs. But asking questions with a critical tone does not set this meeting up well. You want the team, and you all want to focus on doing this together and succeeding. So instead of asking, can this make any money? Say, if you know that there's a small market size or you don't quite understand how they could make money. If somebody said, we're going to do a left-handed Uber, instead of saying, can that make money? Say, tell me about the market size for this product. Maybe there's a country where everyone's left-handed and Uber doesn't exist. You know, you don't know what you don't know, so don't assume that this person has come up with an idea that has no market. Assume that there is a market and ask a question like, tell me what the market size is for this product, so that you can understand their perspective and why they brought up this product idea. The phrasing is just really important. So yeah. Now, I've given you a lot of information. I want to give everybody a chance to practice, and truly practice is the way you get good at these meetings, because there is so much thinking on the fly, listening, making sure you're understanding their priorities, their tones, where their product has the best chance of success, and then coming up with the right question is hard. And so on this next slide, I'm going to give you guys a product idea, the team who's working on it, their inspiration, and their one unique qualifier. And then I would love if you could ask questions in the chat that you would like to ask to this team if you were in the meeting. And I would like for you to keep phrasing in mind. And then I will, I'll talk about some of those questions, and I'll try and call on somebody and we can have a brief conversation about why you would want to ask that question. All right, so here is the product idea. And this is one I've heard pitched at startup weekends and different things, but never seen a really successful version of it in the marketplace.
Oh, there's somebody not muted. Just want to make sure everybody's muted at the moment. Carrie, you want to read this to us? Like, or give us some highlights?
Absolutely, yeah. So this is somebody who, it seems like they've had success at connecting with their neighborhood, at building something great from their neighborhood. They now have a party once a year that even the streets get shut down by the city. But they don't really have any software background. And so they want to have their neighbors be able to share meals, is the simple description of the product. So I overcook, I take a few pictures, I say, give me $5, and my neighbor can pull it up on the app, walk over, pick up the casserole and go home, or whatever. the pan encrusted trout, let's say, an elevated dish that somebody would really want for dinner. Yeah, this is something that feasibly could happen. Now, what would you ask a team like this? Where would your focus be? Where would your concerns be? Let's assume you've already given them a chance to talk about their inspiration, their qualifications, and their idea. Okay, so LaDonna is asking, do they need a license for this? Food inspection, I see legal. Yeah, people are getting on the regulations, so that's great. How much early warning do you think they'll need? Okay, yeah, okay, so let's see. Chiantana, is that how you pronounce your name? Okay, chat's moving fast. Chianta wrote, have you done research on food safety laws regarding this? Okay, so interesting question. One of the first things that in the phrasing is you want to make sure you're setting them up to kind of tell you more about the solution. I think focusing in on the food safety laws is fantastic. I might rephrase this one slightly differently. So you might ask them, how much do you know about food safety laws in the States or internationally? And how prepared are you to do research on the regulations for the product? We want to assume that they have done something. And in the phrasing, I feel like this might, the phrasing there could be improved just a little bit better to assume that they have done some and understand that. Okay, safety concerns in the midst of COVID. That's a huge one. And yeah, so COVID was going on during this, and I didn't really account for that. I'm not even sure how you would build this product in the midst of COVID. I would suggest waiting. Okay, how would you expand past the local neighborhood? Okay, this is, Linda Cruz asked this. That is a fantastic question, because I think it really gets at the core of something that they have as their unique qualifier. That's great. But how are they going to take it to the next level? Just because you can bring a few thousand people from your neighborhood doesn't mean you're going to be able to make this happen over cities and neighborhoods that you're not connected to. So that so far is the question that I've seen that I feel like is spot on, that gets you starting to talk about the conversation about success for the product. The other thing that I think is, oh, I'm kidding, my internet connection is unstable. The other thing that I think is really important here is that the marketing cost for products like this can be tremendous. And so hopefully they have some marketing juggernaut that they use to get this to grow, get this other event to grow that they can replicate, because they're going to have something bigger than just their neighborhood. How do you determine the price point? That's a great question. But I'm not sure that that's actually a question you want to ask in this meeting yet. Pricing is its own beast, and you have a limited amount of time in this meeting to get going. You may want to focus more on the benefit, the business, and the doability questions, and a little less on pricing right away. Okay. I'm just reading through some of the ideas. Have we tested this product idea with potential users? That's a good one. Yeah, you might ask if they've tried anything in their local neighborhood and how it's gone. That would be fantastic if they have. Maybe they're doing something manually and just spreadsheets and text with their neighbors. That would be fantastic. You might even suggest that they do that for a couple of months and just see how it goes. Okay, yeah, you guys have got a ton of questions. I definitely can't address them all, 43 new. But hopefully you get the feeling of how you get this limited amount of information and now you have to start the conversation going. And many of these are great to just do that. All right, so I'm gonna show you on the next slide, oops, the 3 things that I would have considered most important for this. If this idea had been pitched to me, my first concern would have been their inexperience issue. I'm curious how many people here have worked at a startup. Has anybody, if I can see you have the little hand raise or let's see some yeses, if there are. It's rough. It is it's about tenacity. It's about perseverance. And there are days where things get really difficult. You have ups and downs. It's not a straight path to success. You have some failures. Sometimes you have some big failures. Sometimes you spend more money than you expected. If you're the person who's funding it, and this is a couple who's funding it out of their own pockets to start, it's, you know, it can be stressful. So my first couple of questions to them would be, do you understand what you're getting yourself into? And the answer is essentially has to be no, because they haven't. But have they talked to other founders? Do they know other people? Have they connected and asked them questions about what the rough details they went through were, or how they got over obstacles? Because if they just go into it without that, without understanding, it's a little scary. So the next one was regulations. You guys jumped all over that one. And then the next one is the marketing head start. What are they going to do with that? And the team here got that as well. So great job. And there's probably an inexperienced question on here. I couldn't read all of them fast enough. But you get the idea that those are what you're trying to do then is continue the conversation and into the critical concerns and in a positive way. All right, so this is one of the last things you want to do in the meeting. You've heard the idea, you've asked some questions, and now if you have some serious concerns, you want to suggest a shift or maybe a slightly different business model. Or if there's no business model, you want to encourage that there be a business model. You know, products like Pinterest can exist for years without a business model, but most products don't exist for years without a business model. And that's probably the biggest mistake I see startup founders do at first, is they have an idea that they love, but it doesn't really have a business model. Not as common in large corporations at all. Obviously, if they have a business model. All right, so how do you suggest this shift? The best thing I have come up with is use their own words. Remember phrases they have said, especially from, okay. Yeah, so you want to suggest a shift. And the best way that I have found to do this is use their own words. Hopefully when they were talking about their inspiration or how they're uniquely qualified, you have some phrases or something you remember that you can bring up and you can say, now, I understand your product is all about helping this group that you were really inspired by. Let's focus on that part and figure out how we can make a business model that's going to work really well, as opposed to the Uber for left-handed people. Let's focus on the fact that left-handed people have to raise their other hand, and I don't know, whatever. You want to come up with something that they cared about deeply, and you want to focus in on that and bring up their words. Now, this is also another important part about this, is that it takes time. Just because you bring something up doesn't mean you're going to have great ideas right away and that they're going to be interested in the shift on day one. They're probably not. But if you just bring up the idea of a nudge or a slight shift, that's much better than saying, I don't think I can do this product because I don't think it's going to succeed. If anybody has read Nudge by Richard Thaler, it's great in talking about this. And this stuff takes time. So hopefully you and the group together can come up with something that moves the product slightly, but still keeps it in the wheelhouse that the stakeholders are happy. All right. So the end of the meeting goal, what are you trying to achieve here? You want them to be confident in you. If you're an employee, you want them to be impressed with your work and happy with how you go about thinking about things and doing things. If you are a client trying to get hired, you want that contract signed so you can get paid. And the 3 ways that I have found that I think are the best ways to go about this are letting them know I have a clear understanding of their idea of the product. So I want to wrap up the meeting by letting them know I hear their product idea, kind of parrot part of it back to them, let them know I understand what their goals are, what their biggest concerns are. Let them know a couple of things about
Oh, there's a little muting problem. Please remember to stay on mute, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, let them know that I can see a path to creating this. And now, obviously, I'm not going to give them a 50-page roadmap after a meeting, but I am going to give them 2 or 3 highlighted points of how I think things can be organized and how we should proceed. And then lastly, let them know that I'm capable of it. Now, if you're already on a large team, hopefully your capabilities fit well within your team. But if you're in a startup environment, letting them know that you have the skills. So showing bits of your work that focus on what they need done. And then following, the whole goal here is to follow this meeting up with something that gives them confidence in you for all of these things. And if you're a junior member on a team, here's where you're going to send your boss an email that lets them know, here are the notes I took, here's what I understand, maybe here are a couple of thoughts where I think things are pretty tricky or where I think we can improve on the idea that came from the stakeholders. This is really a chance for you to shine in sending something to your boss to make their follow-up to the stakeholders an easier experience, especially if this is a long meeting. All right, so confidence in you is really the ultimate goal by the end. So that is it. That is my presentation, and I hope you have questions, and I really want to thank everybody for
I hope we didn't lose her. Okay, there you are. Okay, great, Carrie. Thank you so much. Everybody, let's give her a little reaction, a little applause reaction. That would be great because she rocked. Carrie, we have some questions.
Hey, thank you. Wow.
Sweet. Carrie, we have some questions for you. So we have pulled them from the chat, and if you're ready, I can go ahead and shoot them your way.
That'd be great.
Okay, so the first question is, what if stakeholders require something but do not provide the right level of detail or they lack clarity?
Oh, this is common. That's expected. I mean, in the first stakeholder meeting, you're going to have things that either are wrong or unclear. Just expect that. Yeah. So things may be off, wrong, or unclear. In a first stakeholder meeting, that shouldn't throw you off too much. Now, if it seems to be the most important thing to them and they have no details about it. So for instance, let's say you're working on a calendar app. I would love if somebody would create a great calendar app. After Microsoft bought Sunrise and got rid of it, I haven't had a great one since. But let's say somebody has no idea how they would show multiple, how they would deal with recurring events, but they really want to do a calendar app. You would want to get into the fact that it's important to have recurring events, but not the details of everything that's going to be on the forum about that. Because that's what the designers are going to go and focus on later. So it's important to discuss that things matter, but not how they matter, because that's what designers are going to do over time. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, great. Thanks, Carrie. What do you do when the stakeholders are not the decision makers and the decision makers are not attending the meeting?
If you find a way to talk to the decision makers informally, if you can, and not cause problems, is my first suggestion. You know, I think making friends with people is really important for just that kind of an experience. So hopefully you can have a 2-minute informal conversation sometimes and just be like, hey, da-da-da, and throw little things out there. That can also upset people. So it's not always the right thing to do. Another important part there is just, you have to give, if the decision makers aren't there, then you have to treat the stakeholders like they are the decision makers. Just assume that they do have control and that they do have influence. But that is tricky. It's outside of your wheelhouse to control, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. But it can sometimes derail a project.
Okay, good to know. Unfortunate, but good to know. What advice do you have for the stakeholders to ensure the good outcome of a first meeting with a development team?
Interesting. I'm not sure right off the top of my head. You know, stakeholders, unless they're technical people on the stakeholder team, I think they're going to be a little less concerned about what technology or how things are built. They definitely should be concerned about that, but it should be from somebody technical. Yeah.
Sure, that's fair. Okay, so this question comes from Natalie Long, and we got a lot of thumbs up +1s for this question. Given our raised attention toward race and equity, what if there are hero today to soccer mom or rich white people who do X? How might you suggest to expand their reach without making it more challenging to hone in on their target user?
Yeah, interesting question. Well, you know, in this situation, I would suggest that they may have a target audience that they want to start with, but I would start bringing up the conversation of, where do you see the product going next? Where can you grow this? And start to push them to move the product to other audiences it's appropriate for. You know, I have never heard anybody describe their target audience as rich white people. So, you know, certainly it doesn't mean that people wouldn't think like that, but I've never heard them specifically. Usually it's more soccer moms or, you know, busy professionals or parents or those kinds of groups. And I would definitely suggest that if that's important to you, and it is important to all of us these days, do what you can to encourage that the design be something that the design create a product that is inclusive, that the language and the tone in the product be something that certainly isn't off-putting to any particular group if you can. I would focus more on the details of the design and the tone and the language and the marketing. The marketing can be huge. But typically products are designed for groups that I think are less race-based. Maybe that's just my own experience, but I feel like the niche is usually about education or lifestyle activities or different things like that, business professions, things that don't necessarily have a target race. Great question.
Great. So how do you proceed if one or all of your answers to the core questions is no?
I seriously consider moving on to the next client. But if you're in a big corporation, you don't get that option. If this project has been assigned to you and you think it hurts the business, doesn't help anyone, and isn't doable, I mean, get ready to get out of bed and have to work really hard at staying the course for this project. Just try and prepare yourself. But yeah, when I have that option to pass on a project, if I have three no's, I've never had 3 no's. So those questions. So that's not likely to happen. And I've probably sat in, I don't know, at least 50 of these meetings over the years. But I've had some hard no's to 1. And, you know, I mean, it makes me think, it becomes a factor. It occasionally becomes a factor in my pricing. You know, maybe I'll take this one, but it'll be a little more expensive for the person because I think this is just really going to be a challenge. You know,
Okay.
but you're not going to get 3 no's. That would be weird.
Okay. So you mentioned the phrase, don't upset your users to get new users. So how do stakeholders react to that?
Yeah, I'm sure it can be all over the place, but yeah, when you have a growth idea, it's just an important consideration. And it doesn't mean you don't upset anyone, because let's be honest, how many times has a product you've loved come out with a new design, a redesign, or brand new features, and it's been frustrating to you? I think we've all experienced that. Right now, I'm frustrated with Hulu. My dad keeps calling me and asking how to get to my channels that they took away. But, you know, you just have to be considerate of it. And I think that's the best thing. If they will at least consider that it is an important point, and hopefully you can do some testing with current users that aren't just your top 2% who send you an email once a week, but are an average customer who pays their bill and doesn't email you. If you can get that, you're succeeding.
Perfect. So how do you steer from firefighting mode, predetermined solutioning, and deliver quickly versus bringing them through the journey to build a cohesive solution, which gets rid of the problem in the long run? So I think that means, like, how do you slow them down?
Yeah. So really, I love this question. A lot of times the people who are coming to you with their idea, there's a lot of ego and enthusiasm and I know the right way attitude. And you're never going to get rid of that. And I don't even try. A lot of the times, if there are details where they have come up with the best solution and they just love their solution in its entirety, I don't try and crack that concept. Certainly not in this first meeting, because why? I don't even have the job yet, or we're not even off and running. My personal strategy is small incremental design details. It's over time. A lot of the time their goal will be over here and my goal will be maybe here as opposed to here. And I just try and nudge them to be okay with this. And then I sometimes have to nudge my product to be like this. You know, it's just, it's all about small details and small shifts in thinking. And I have been very surprised over the years at how people are great at hating an idea at first and then embracing it weeks later and talking about how it's helped the product so much weeks later. And I don't know what it is that makes that happen. I'm sure there's some psychology concept about that, but if I can bring something up multiple times in a way that is not confrontational, negative, and they'll start to talk about it that way, and then it just slowly shifts. So that's always my strategy. I never try and say, hey, you solutioned this whole thing and 4 of your 10 ideas are terrible, even if the other 6 are good. I just, especially early on.
Sure. Okay, great. So how do you steer your stakeholders away from some assumptions or biases about their users? Like, I'm the user, or my users are unintelligent, etc. How do you steer them away from some of those assumptions?
Yeah, so that one is unfortunate. Well, I will say things like, it's not that people are unintelligent. I'm not going to talk about, I'll say I don't talk about people like that. There's actually one great slide that I love to show people when they say that people are dumb. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this. I wish I had it pulled up, but it's 3 cat bowls, and the cats are all intertwined around each other, and they're all in a row. I'll show people that and say, it's not about smart. It's about designing for your audience. And if I have done something and everybody's terrible at it, that's on me not understanding my audience. It's not on cats not knowing how to line up. Like, nobody teaches cats how to line up, and it's not their instinct. So that truly is a slide I have sent around a number of times. So, but I'll simply say things like, well, I'm not going to talk about users like that. Because we are designing for them, and we have to meet them where they are. So that's one. I feel like if I put my foot down on anything, it's that, because I like thinking of us as being heroes to them. And so sometimes it's harder, but that doesn't mean they're dumb.
Yeah, that's fair. So how does this stakeholder meeting go differently if it's a nonprofit? So profitability isn't the same issue. What are the differences there?
Yeah. Well, so the business question, instead of being like, will it bring in enough revenue? Is it positive for the business? That question may have a completely different shift. It may be on being able to raise funds or a slightly different context. But generally, it's not dramatically different. You still want to create something that benefits people, that helps the business, and that is doable. Just that business question has a different context, but I haven't found it to be dramatically different.
Okay. So you mentioned that sometimes you need to nudge a stakeholder several times to create a shift. Yeah. What are some recommendations for that kind of nudging?
Yeah, just casual conversations, showing them different things, showing them how things are working well. Occasionally, I will, I'll slip in a design that I haven't mentioned that I was working on, or that I was, that I saw something slightly different. And I'll show them that, and maybe focus on that I didn't understand clearly the background behind the other way of doing it, and that this way solves a certain problem, as opposed to just waiting to work on that feature and then doing exactly what they've asked. So sometimes if it's something that I feel like is we see things most differently, I'll try and work on that ahead of the time that I'm asked to, and just do my perspective first. It's not always great. It doesn't always work, but sometimes if you do have a clear perspective that covers a couple of different things that theirs doesn't, you can do that. And then I always default to my pros and cons. I can say, okay, well, here are trade-offs. We can definitely go your way, but the trade-offs there are that it's going to do this and that instead of this way, which does this and that. And I try not to ever say my way. I say your way, and I say this other way. Yeah.
Okay, great. Looks like we have one more question, and that is, how do you go about communicating with a dry or dry personality or stakeholder who doesn't really seem comfortable with this format or isn't really into the meeting? What are some tactics that you have to kind of build a rapport?
Yeah, that can be tricky. You know, I've certainly met personality types that are either more dry or more abrasive or all sorts of different things. I don't know. I'm generally pretty happy to meet lots of people and pretty forgiving on whatever attitude they want to have, barring them being completely rude or, scary maybe. But that's going to matter to you. If you are in my position and you are trying to get hired as to work with somebody directly as a consultant, I don't know, you have to expect a lot of different personalities, and if you find yourself constantly struggling there, maybe this would be more something you want to steer away from, and maybe you want to be on a team instead. I feel like I've liked most of the people I've worked with. They're pretty interesting people, and I've certainly had one or two. And occasionally you have to walk away. It's just not a good fit. Everything's not a good fit. I don't know. That one personally hasn't been a big deal.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Carrie, for your time and your questions. As everybody can see here on the screen, if you have any additional questions for Carrie, feel free to reach out to her via email or Twitter. She's very responsive. So at this point of the evening, we're going to transition to the...
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you. We're going to transition to the breakout rooms, and this is the fun part. This is the part where you meet your UX community. It's totally cool. So these are the questions that we're going to ask. What we're going to do, here's the format. So we're going to break out into rooms of like 4 or 5, and we're going to break out for 15 minutes, and we're going to, in every breakout room, tell us your name, what your specialty is, just a little bit about you. Are you more of a UX designer, product owner? Tell us what your role is, or what you would like your role to be, what your interests are. And then our first question is, what is your favorite or most important question that you either have asked a stakeholder or you would like to ask a stakeholder when you want to have a conversation? So we're, let me see, trying to find the breakout room thing. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I cannot find the breakout room. And I can't seem to stop sharing my screen either. Weird. There we go. Too many things layering out. So we're going to, like I said, we're going to break out into rooms of 4 or 5. And we'll go for about 15 minutes. We'll bring you back in. Then we'll come break out again to answer the second question. So the first question is, you tell your new friends a little bit about yourself. And what is your favorite, or what is the most important question to ask a stakeholder? So breakout rooms, if you haven't done them before in Zoom, it'll say, join the room. You need to join the room. So it doesn't do it. I don't think it does it automatically for you. I can't recall. Laura, do you remember if you have to kind of join it? You have to say, I'm going in, right?
Yeah, you have to accept, like, let me go to the breakout room, and then it puts you in there. So just to let you guys know, if you don't go to your breakout room, there could be somebody who's just in the room by themselves. Sad.
So don't do that. Be nice. Let's make friends tonight. Okay, great. So let's break out.
Hello?
Doing it. Yep. Just one
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
Room 5.
Hello?
Hi. Should unmute myself and making our way back. Yeah, looks like it. So how did that go? Anybody care to comment after the first room? Did you learn any good questions? Anyone? Maybe?
Kimberly had a good one.
Yeah. Kimberly, you want to share?
You want to
your-
tell him?
Okay, sure. Hi everybody. So yes, one of the things that I like to do when I'm kicking off work is to ask my stakeholder what they believe the problem is to be. Yeah, so kind of getting that and understanding, yeah, what they perceive that problem is, and also is there a variation between my various stakeholders there. So if I can see that variation and gaps, I can kind of go, okay, well, there's some knowledge gaps that could be easily addressed, or if there's a lot of alignment, that kind of already gives me some ideas of areas to focus and prioritize on.
Cool, that's a good one. Absolutely. All right, so let's break out again. The next question is, if this is a little more casual, if you could live anywhere in the world, what would that be? So I'm going to stop sharing and break us out. All right? Maybe. All right, here we go. Looks like everybody is slowly but surely strolling back in, which is cool. All right, we should have everybody back who's gonna be back, I would imagine. Does anybody have any anything they'd like to share? Like we have a few minutes. Anybody have any thoughts or comments, either from the breakout rooms or from Carrie's talk? Anyone?
Hi, Jennifer. I just had one question, Survashi here. It was a really great meeting and great introduction, as well as insight into Carrie's thoughts about, for the stakeholder and how to go about meetings. I just wanted to ask you with regards to like digital, someone with a digital analytics background and specialize with UX research, and you've taken the details, I believe, on the spreadsheet. So would there be future opportunities, or is there a way you could connect further? I mean, I'm based in LA. Just wanted to check with you. Thank you.
Yeah, Lauren, do you want to talk a little bit about the spreadsheet? Unmute.
Thank you. Yes. So we did start a spreadsheet for anybody who wants to connect with others on LinkedIn. And so I think, Pedro, thank you for putting it back in the chat, but it's at the bottom of the chat now, if you can see it, and you can put in your name, location, what your role or specialty is, and what you're hoping to get from connecting. So that could be like job seeking or just making connections. Oh, is it not still there for people? Lori, would you mind pasting it back into the chat again? Perfect. There we go. And you can put your LinkedIn URL so people can easily find you, and you can find other people to connect with. So that's the goal of the spreadsheet. We'll continue to post it in other meetups, but it's just a place where you can go and find other people to start up conversations.
Yeah, it can be tricky
Thank
with
you.
the chat and all the things going on. So this was a suggestion that we got from the last meetup. So we thought we would give it a try.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone else?
I have a quick question. This is
Okay,
Kelly.
great. Well, oh, yeah.
Kelly from Boston. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
This is my first time at the meeting, and so thank you very much for having us. It was a great presentation, very informative. And my background is in industrial design, so I'm kind of new to the whole UX research, area. But I was curious, so how many people are usually from the user experience side? How many of those people there at the stakeholder meetings do you typically have, like 2 or 3, or kind of depending on what the what's needed to facilitate the actual meeting?
Laura, you look like you want to answer that.
So when you say user experience people, do you mean designers and researchers?
Yeah.
Okay. So the answer, it depends. It depends on how your company is constructed.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, do the designers do the research, and is there a research team? There may not be. My experience has been there's usually one designer and a researcher, a product manager, hopefully somebody from development. Sometimes they get left off. And that's usually who's at these meetings. Sometimes you might get 2 designers depending on how they're dividing up the work, if somebody's covering for somebody, but you only usually have 1 researcher because there's never enough of us to go around. And then sometimes you might have a product director if they seem that they want to come, or they feel like they're important enough to be there for that discussion. So yeah, and so if you don't have a researcher, your designer's there and they're representing both sides, which is kind of difficult sometimes for them to do.
Yeah, I would imagine. Cool, that makes sense. Thanks.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Oh, hi. My name is Chidima from San Jose. I'm trying to transition to user research. I did design in a place where I had to do the research, and that wasn't fun. And I finally figured that there are places where people focus on just like, user interviews and road mapping their research for the rest of the year. But anyways, I'm kind of interested in healthcare, and I was wondering, does anybody in like the healthcare field, more like in pharmacy, and what kind of problems like are you solving, like regarding like research, and how do you kind of deal with that group, because that's like a very specific group of people, especially people who are in pain or have any kind of like more problems than just a user who's frustrated with an interface.
I'm not sure
Anybody
there's
here?
anybody on the call. Yeah, I have some experience. I've never worked exclusively in healthcare, but I have done some research for healthcare clients. And I had to do a round of usability testing with breast cancer patients who were going through treatment.
Mm-hmm.
That was very difficult for me. It was very difficult for them. But at the end of the day, they really wanted to provide their feedback because they wanted the thing that we were getting feedback on to be easier for people like them to use. So they felt it was very important for them to do so. But I had more than one person break down in tears on me in the session because they're in the middle of their treatment. They don't know if they're going to survive this. So it was very, very difficult. So you have to take your empathy and dial it up to 11 when you have people in those circumstances. I've talked to people who have had cars repossessed, not quite the same thing, but the stories that they told me were always around something very, very sad happening in their life, someone passing away, a child getting taken from them. Lots of different things happen to these people. And again, the empathy, sometimes you have to let them finish their story, even if it has nothing to do with what you're there to find out from them. From a technical aspect, you might want to give yourself more time in the sessions because things will come up that you may not plan. You didn't anticipate that they wanted to share this kind of information with you, and they need to share it with you in order to let you ask the rest of the questions. And as always, PII is so important to keep confidential, and even more so in these times because you don't know what kind of stories they're going to come out with when they talk to you about things.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my experiences.
Yeah, good stuff, Lori. I also have a little bit of experience in healthcare. Granted, mine was pet health. I used to work for a veterinary company, and there's certainly a lot less regulations. So the users of my products were mostly doctors and technicians, people who worked in hospitals. So not really sure what your focus is, but if your user base is more in the medical field, reach out to me and we can talk. I don't know. Again, pet health is very different than human health, but it's still medical and it's still doctors. So we can chat and see if anything's useful for you, but I have experience in healthcare as well.
I've been doing user research with epidemiologists for the last 6 months because the organization I'm supporting is literally building tools for researchers. So we literally interview medical professionals and epidemiologists, trying mostly exclusively. So we have a lot of medical people in our community in Corona Y. So it might be a place that you could find some places to convert. Like we have pharmacological epidemiologists regularly on calls. So they might be a really interesting person for you to talk to, like Serge, a guy I know, he's a pharma researcher. So he's an epidemiologist that does research, but literally studies what the suitability and the viability of medicines and treatments that have been developed. But we also did research on development and treatment. So I could I'd be happy to point you in that direction, but I'm not in that field myself. I've just been doing it.
Thank you so much, Tyler. I will reach out to you later and would love to connect with the epidemiologist. Oh, thanks, Carrie.
Yeah, they're a really busy breed right now, so they're really hard to talk to. We fight quite hard to get them, and they have to get them on board. We've had I think we've had 5 calls with 5 different epidemiologists, and we've got the viral disease team from Edinburgh University on board. So yeah, there's a few different organisations that might be of use. Most of them are academic, but we do have pharmacological people within the community of coronavirus as well. So if you're interested in that space, medicine is pretty noisy right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Who asked the question? I'm sorry. Oh, hi. Chidinma?
Yeah.
Is that how you say your name? Okay. I've been involved with the pharmaceutical PBM, pharmaceutical benefits management tier. I don't know if that's a support to you. I don't work there any longer, but I have contacts there if you, depending on what your information you're seeking.
Yeah, I'm looking to understand specifically about like the opioid crisis, like how the doctors and patients, like how they deal with that process of onboarding like a person who's going to be prescribed like a pain medication. And if you were to conduct like research in that space, like user research, quantitative, quantitative, like what are the different things like Lori mentioned, like PII and a lot of empathy, like all these
Yeah,
things
I would love for you guys to make make those connections and help each other. That would be awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, go ahead and take my name. It's Danette Klein at gmail.com, and I'll see if I could connect you with some people who are actively doing that. I didn't, but I can point you in the right direction if they'll allow it. So Danette.Klein at gmail.com.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'll send you a note as well as Tyler, maybe I get your emails. That'd be cool.
And if you don't,
I'm on the LinkedIn list. I've put myself on there. You can find me on there easily enough. And coronawhy.org, you can sign up and join up through there, and I'll see you joining into that community, which is where everyone would be if you wanted to join it.
Nice. Anybody else have any kind of closing questions or remarks?
Hi, my name is Nicole Ng. I have a similar question in that I'm looking to transition over, also from industrial design, actually. Hey, ID. Anyway, like one of my favorite parts of the design process were the brief moments that I got to work in, like connecting with users. A particular interest of mine and something in which I did my final thesis project on was considering the future of public transit. And I saw that there were some moves in cities to start considering like a user experience in designing the future of public transit. But now that COVID has hit, I wonder what has happened to those projects. I wonder what openings there might be for somebody who's not necessarily a senior designer or a senior researcher or strategist to contribute to projects dealing with that, especially now that like COVID is happening. Like how can that be reconsidered? This is like just a personal interest of mine. I wonder, does anybody have involvement with working in that field of like public transit or urban planning in that type of dovetail cross section, perhaps?
I've been, I know it's a completely separate person now, but it's a really nice thing to have a really interesting community of people you hang out with. Agnes Stibe is somebody I'd really recommend. He's really interested in, he's Professor Agnes Stibe. He's really interested in smart cities and technological urban development changes across the planet. He's heavily researches in that space and about transformative science. He's part of Corona Y, but he's also pretty actively involved and easily findable. He's on LinkedIn. He shares a lot of things on there. He shares a lot of things on YouTube. It might be an interesting person to reach out to, especially because he's really especially interested in the urban development changes, and transit is just part of that. I'd recommend that person to talk to.
Cool. And Kimberly, you mentioned in the chat, Kimberly Richards, she says she's from Australia and has a lot of, that you speak to yourself, just in case Nicole missed the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, if you'd like to, I can certainly talk to the Australian experience. I work for the government in Sydney, but probably one of the big things is that I know at least in Australia, the designers in that space, from a wide variety of experiences, but they're also working and designing the future. So they're designing 10, 20, 30 years into the future. That's where a lot of our designers are working in that space, and also in the product side around ticketing and kind of those closer to customer interactions. I know that's certainly the Australian experience at the moment. So if that's your area you want to go into, there's probably going to be the forward or the very, very close to the transaction experience.
Yes, Jetsons. Except we are already past the Jetsons time. That sounds very exciting. If there's anybody you know that might be interested in talking to me for like 5 minutes, that would be great.
Cool. Great.
Hi, it's Kelly again. I just wanted to call out, if anybody's into like environment or clean energy, I would love to connect with them too and learn more about that space. And I will definitely put my name and LinkedIn on the Google sheet too. So thank you for doing that. That's awesome.
Excellent. I would also recommend this. I got a few shameless plugs. I would also recommend there is going to be a survey that comes out after this, and we would love you all if you would fill it out. And on that survey, there's an opportunity to sign up for our Slack channel. And we got 700 members in Slack right now. That's a great place to ask these kinds of questions and make some connections. People are very responsive. So that might be another great place for you to post a question like this. Who's familiar in the space? They may know people, or they may be in that space as well. So if you get the survey via email, in there's a link to sign up for our Slack channel. So I would like to kind of plug that as well. One more other little plug, our December event. I know some of you are talking about transitioning into user experience. So our December event is Kevin Liang, and he has a lot of experience in user research for Google, Uber, all the biggies out in Silicon Valley. And he's going to talk about just that, how to transition or get a professional job in user experience research. So that's in December. I don't think we've posted tickets yet, but we will be soon. So keep an eye out for that. That will be our December event. So just wanted to point that out to anybody who's trying to get some information on how to get into user experience research. That's going to be a great event.
Excuse me, Jen, do you know the date?
Sorry, could you?
December it is?
I'm sorry, say that again, Andrew.
Oh, the date, like what part of beginning December?
December 8th, I believe. December 8th, 5 o'clock Central Time, so 3 o'clock Pacific Time. And in the survey, let us know if these times are working for you or not. You know, we're global now. It's very difficult to, thank you for, Kimberly from Australia and Tyler from the UK. Thank you, everyone coming in all the time zones. This is great. But, we're flexible. We want to meet as many people as possible in the middle. But, let us know what's working or what's not working. Did you like the breakout rooms? Or if you're like, nope, I'm out. Let us know that too. This is your community as much as it is ours, and we want to make sure that you're getting what you need out of it as well. So that's my shameless plug.
Jennifer, thank you for sharing. I just wanted to ask you, could you repeat the name of the person again who you mentioned in December would be the full name, Kevin?
Yep, Kevin Liang. He is, he's got a good YouTube channel too. I recommend watching it, but there might be a little bit of overlap in some of the topics because he does talk about some of those cool topics. But Kevin Liang he's really awesome. It's going to be a great event.
And you'd be
I know
sharing
that-
it on the email, the event which would be coming.
Yeah, the easiest and fastest way for you to find out about events is to subscribe to the Eventbrite mailing list. And as soon as those go, that's who finds out first. Actually, who finds out first are all our people on our Slack channel. We tell them first. They're our community, so we want them to know first. So we tell them.
Yeah, I'm on
So
the Slack.
you'd
You
be
should
sharing.
definitely be on it.
So to be part of the Slack channel, when you'd be sharing the survey, so we could get that opportunity to apply for that. After that, the event, right?
Yeah, what you do is you're going to get a survey about tonight's event in it via email. And in that survey, there is there's a link to sign up for the Slack channel.
Okay, all right, great. Thanks for sharing, Jennifer.
Sure. Anyone else? We got a couple minutes. We'll go to 7 our time. Anyone else have some parting thoughts?
Anybody in the finance industry for UI UX? You are. Oh, wow.
Me too. Even
I'm also in the financial services industry.
Consumer credit counseling.
I'm in auto finance.
I'm into insurance.
Mine's investment banking and hedge funds.
Mine's an investment 401k.
I did send you a request, Jennifer. I look forward to connecting with you.
You bet.
We've got a wide range of financial topics covered. That's pretty cool too. You say finance and you've got like 6 different subtopics.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, if you join the Slack channel and want to connect with someone in your industry, I bet you anything you'll find someone that is in your industry, because we've got a lot of people with a lot of experience on the channel too.
Yeah.
I look forward to connecting.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I also, one more little plug, because that's what I do, I plug. Just want to point out the next event, which is October 15th, which is what method to use when. We get a lot of requests for this. I'm not really sure what research method I should use. And so that's going to be our next event. Tickets are available for that. So sign up for that. That is October 15th at 5 p.m. Central Time. And hopefully we'll see you guys all there. So thank you. Thank you for the diehards sticking it out to the end. You are my people. You are my people. We appreciate that. We appreciate all of you for coming, participating, saying you're in the industry, throwing out your questions. And I want to continue this conversation on Slack channels. So I'll see you guys
If this
there.
is your first time, welcome. Like, this is so exciting to see so many of your smiling faces. So thank you for coming. And
Thank you guys.
Yeah,
Sounds
thank
like
you.
a great group.
It is.
Thank you for organizing.
You
Thank you
betcha.
very much. Thank you for organizing it.
You too. Good night, good morning, good day.
Thank you and bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Tschüss.
Thank you.